आज का ख़ास मौजू जो है वो अर्थ आर्किटेक्चर या मड आर्किटेक्चर के हवाले से है। फोकस तो वही रहेगा, मगर अगर शायद पहले तो मैं आपको वेलकम करता हूँ। Then I would like you to first please introduce Indus Earth before we start.
I was seconded by the British government in 1980 to work in Zambia, Zimbabwe and Malawi. And my interest in rural development started from there. So when I came back to Pakistan in 91, I decided that I actually did not know my country. So I got into a car and I drove through Sindh and Balochistan. Punjab I knew and Frontier I knew because of holidays, but Sindh and Balochistan I had no idea. And through the process of travel, which was about 10 days, maybe 2 weeks, I came to the conclusion that my architectural education was lacking, was missing. Huge chunk was missing. That actually I was trained to only look at things that apply to the urban areas. Nobody had actually talked about what happened in the rural areas. So after my experience in Africa, I decided that maybe what I should do is to try and establish some sort of an organization that could help towards improving the living standards of people. And that covered a huge spectrum of things, over and above buildings. It covered livelihoods, it covered health, water, electricity. And slowly I came to the conclusion that one of the most important things to provide in the rural areas was lighting. And then so we started looking at the whole concept of solar energy. I had also been lucky enough to be trained in a particular location in Scotland where they do wind energy. And in the process of looking at that, I became more and more interested in the whole concept of alternative energy, alternative systems. I've not been able to do a study as yet for the simple reason that I don't have enough funds to do that. But my observation of the villages, we work in about 500 villages now in Sindh and Balochistan. We've been working for now 22 years. And it's the level of hope that I see, especially in women. I'll tell you a little story. We were having tea in one of the villages, and I noticed that this was around about 4 in the afternoon, 5 in the evening. And I noticed that the women that were there were not drinking tea.
Sure.
So मैंने उनसे पूछा, आप चाय क्यों नहीं पी रहे? And they said, you know, we have to go out into the bush at night to relieve ourselves. And that is why we're not drinking tea at the moment, because of that. But when we provided lights in the village, they were able to see where they were going. And they started drinking tea the next time I came. Simple little examples. I'll give you another simple example. We provide drinking water from underground. And we thought that we were doing a very clever thing by providing taps next to each house from a main tank. And actually it cost a lot of money, and it was... So we thought, you know, they won't have to walk to the well. And then I noticed once I arrived there one day that hardly any of these taps were being used. And then I asked the women, she said, आपने तो बड़ा जुल्म करा है, जहाँ पर हम लोग बैठते थे गपशप करने थे वो आपने हटा दिया. So you know, you learn little things, and the arrogance with which certainly I thought I was doing something corrective was corrected very rapidly. My interest in earth as a building material started in Africa. And then when I came here, and I was fortunate enough to be given a scholarship to go to an organization called CRATerre in France, where I was trained in the use of indigenous materials. And they're the world leaders in the use of earth as a material. And then after that experience, they came to a village in Cairo, which is about an hour and a half drives from Karachi. And we established a training center. And they advised us as to how to go about doing this. And fortunately, we were given a grant by the UNDP. This was in 2010. Just after the floods. No, sorry, I beg your pardon, just before the floods. And we built about 6 of these houses using different techniques of earth construction, and one was a double-story house. We were very conscious of the fact that the house types that we were doing had to be simple, train people how to build their houses. So, it mustn't be complex in any form. So a very simple structure. And we trained 20 masons. This was in 2010. And recently I spoke to 2 or 3 of these masons, and they've been building houses in other villages. So one of our concepts of philosophy, if you like, is if you train somebody to do something, they can train somebody else to do that same thing. As opposed to providing them with a ready-made house, we were saying, no, you learn how to make this. And what is the technique? We didn't invent the wheel. Earth houses have been built for centuries. The only thing that has been forgotten, or had been forgotten, was the technique of building those houses. Their grandfathers had built them. Their fathers were learning how to build them, or had a little knowledge. But the sons were, keen on using or going into town and using concrete blocks because it was much quicker, etc. So the technique of building earth houses had been lost. It is still there, but it's very difficult to find the right masons. So we were very keen to train masons. And mashallah, they're doing a great job in the places where we've been working in Iran and Balochistan and Sindh mostly. We haven't worked in Punjab or the frontier, except for the one example in 2005 when the Kashmir earthquake took place. We built 3 houses there using just the materials that were available on site, but all 3 houses were rejected by the government, as an example, because we had not used concrete or reinforced steel. And the reason we hadn't used concrete or reinforced steel was one which is very obvious to me. At 4,000 feet, आप concrete और steel कैसे लाएंगे? गरीब कैसे लाएगा?
सही.
So, the old houses were using huge trunks of as beams. So we shaved all these trunks, cut them into the beams that should be the right size. Unfortunately, I don't have any slides to show you of that at the moment. But it was a pretty successful exercise. And as I said to somebody, I said, we will find out whether we were right or wrong. God forbid, if there's another earthquake, we'll find out then whether our approach was correct or not correct.
And the cost, I believe, was also quite low.
Yes,
compared to concrete.
No, well, because we were using the same materials that the house had collapsed.
Achha.
So, the stone was readily available. And the beams were all timber, so we were using that as a structure. And the people that lived in there, we were building them for actually those houses. And we could only do 3 because of the funding that we had. And it was funded by the French organization called Atlas Logistique, and CRATerre was involved in those construction of those houses. And we learned from them in that particular technique. And ever since that time, I've been working for the last 15 years on earth's housing in Sindh and Balochistan. And at this very moment in time, we are working in a village in Sibi, near Sibi, which was totally destroyed in the floods. The reason why we're working in Sibi is because it's been funded by a private entrepreneur who is a Pakistani living in Saudi Arabia. And he has selected this village. So he's provided a huge amount of funds, but we're still looking for funds to complete the project. I think if I just show maybe आपको जो सबसे पहले slide जो है आप दिखा दें, the big one. Every village, not every village, but most villages in Sindh and Balochistan have their own structure. There are certain tribes that live within, and different tribes that live there. They have their own structure. They work differently. Some have more wealth than others. I'm showing this slide because this is the sort of persons that we're interested in. This one slide, this is the type of house which is just using reeds and bamboo. दूसरा slide दिखाइए. This is one of the things that we were very conscious of, was women cooking inside the houses. A lot of them have suffered from lung diseases because of the smoke. In the same village, in this house, and this person is obviously more wealthy than the person that we were showing before. So really, we are not interested in the person who has this wealth, because they can quite obviously look after themselves. These are sort of 5 examples of the type of housing that we are promoting with the World Bank, with the UN Habitat for the flood affected areas. And as you can see, all of them are very simple buildings. We go for pitch roofs for the simple reason that it is, in my opinion, easier to waterproof. The water just flows off. We use thatch in most cases. The walls are all made out of compressed earth blocks. Compressed earth blocks requires around about 6 to 8% lime mixture to stabilize it. And as I said, because the machine is very easy, it was invented, by the way, this machine was invented in Peru in the 1960s. So we haven't invented anything. I emphasize that we haven't invented the wheel. It's all been done before. Maybe we just interpreted the way that it could be used in our country. All of these building types that you see are being built in Balochistan now. Except for the flood, the second one from the left is a floating house. This was done as an exercise, and we are wanting to build this to prove that it can work. Because believe it or not, the water is still existing in certain areas in Sindh. It hasn't gone. Sindh is very flat, and therefore the water is not being allowed to drain away by natural causes, natural issues. So the 4 examples we are building in Balochistan, there are 2 reasons for that. One is to demonstrate to anybody who's interested, that includes government and private sector, anybody who's interested in the particular types of this construction, Now, when we talk to the people in that village, some have preferred one and some have preferred the other. So that's to show the example. This is slide please. I'm just showing this because we built a double-story house. I don't know if it's clear enough to see. All made out of earth, adobe blocks, adobe earth construction. See, they are now. There was no reinforcement. There's nothing of that kind is needed. And earth construction, if it is done properly, and there's no reason why it can't be, will last you 10, 20 years. One of the advantages of earth construction is that you have to just use a lapai every year to keep it. It's an organic material. It's not, there's no rocket science to it. And this has been used now for the last 10 years. It's still standing. All the buildings that we built in 2010 are still standing. This is one of my favorite architects, Hassan Fateh, who
Egypt.
He built this in Cairo, just outside Cairo, at a place called Gorna, new town. And I was lucky enough to be there about a month ago. And this is all made out of earth. Now he's an expert who's experimented and built beautiful buildings, all out of earth. Next thing. This is the inside of the masjid. I think it's just, it's so, the word that came to me was sublime.
It is indeed.
It is. And I show these slides to students. I say, please try and understand the use of a material which is from the ground, this earth. But if you use it in a particular way, you can build things. Next slide again. This is the passageway and the courtyards and open areas and plants and
beautiful.
So this is a farmhouse that I'm building in Sindh. Again, this is using earth as a material throughout, and bamboo roof, bamboo structure in the front. This is really meant to have plants to grow over it and encase the whole thing in plants. The plants are starting to grow, the creepers are starting to grow. Hopefully in a year's time.
How do you do the roof waterproofing for?
The roof waterproofing we use parachute material. And then we put this is slide again. The corner of this is being made in stone. This is in the wind corridor. And the corner was the one that was exposed, is always exposed the most. So I just thought that, we'd make a stone corner to protect that corner. This is a veranda that looks out into the garden here. This is slide, please. This is some more pictures of the building. This is the veranda. As you can see, that just is bamboo. And bamboo must never be nailed. You must remember that. Because nailing the bamboo, it splits it and loses its strength. So what you have to do is to drill a hole and use dowels. And I don't know if you can see these dowels. And then you wrap it around with, we're using coconut rope. This is coconut rope. ठीक है, दूसरा slide दिखाइए. अच्छा, you can just see the detailing of the roof. That we put chatai on top of the waterproof material. अंदर दिखाइएगा, दूसरा slide में. And this is the roof finished from the inside. So you can see that there's bamboo and the chatai is exposed on the inside.
फिर एक दफा फिर चटाई आएगी.
हाँ.
2 दफा.
3 दफा.
वो क्यों?
बस just to give it a better insulation and more strength. अच्छा, This is a competition that I won from the Institute of Architects and Planners, and it's a health center for women. Really, basically, it's turning out to be a place where women who are pregnant and who are in need of advice on family planning, etc., they come to this. The the walls are made out of rammed earth, and one of the reasons I made this into this shape, we interviewed some women that were at the hospital in, this is near Jacobabad. So in the hospital in Jacobabad, and they were saying that, you know, we feel a bit reticent about going inside. Wahapur is very clinical and it's very sort of organized, and it seems sort of distant from us. And what I was trying to do with the shape was to say that, look, you would be welcome to come here. And actually the women love it. There's only women can come here, there's no men allowed here at all. And the roof is bamboo roof. This is now the walls. This has been built. By the way, the floods came up to about 3 feet from the plinth that you see above. And the last visit that I made, which was about 3 weeks ago, maybe longer, the water had receded and there was no damage done to the walls.
Sure. This is rammed earth.
This is rammed earth.
No additives, lime or anything.
No.
But it's the compression thing.
No additive. And this is in the process of being constructed at the moment. And this is another building type where what we call as butterfly roof, to collect the air from one side. On that side is west, so it comes down and goes out from this side. And this is also rammed earth, using bamboo in the front to give it a shade. This is just to show you that, you know, you can use bamboo in so many different ways. This is a wall, really, to give it some protection from the wind. But the wind is very strong in that area. So on the other side of this, we were going to grow some vegetables. But they wouldn't grow at all because the wind was so strong. So I just built this, which is, and this is not nailed or anything, it's just because of the shape, it just fits inside. And the tension of the material itself controls it. I came up with this idea that these plastic bottles that are thrown on the ground, the waterproof plastic bottles, maybe they could be used to encase the bamboo to protect it. And indeed, we encased it and heated the plastic. So when you heat the plastic, it shrinks, and it just got hold of the bamboo so strongly that it doesn't move at all. So one, it makes it totally waterproof, and two, it protects it from termites. And it doesn't do anything to the strand, so you know this should last quite a long time. And plus, we're using discarded plastic bottles for. This is a building that I am involved in advising the students at the Indus Valley School. It's a competition that they did themselves, and this was the one that 3 of the students won. So now the entire class, which is of 28 students, are building this. And actually now he just sent me a picture recently. मैंने शायद उसको भी भेजा थे क्या इसमें लगा हुआ है कि नहीं दूसरा दिखाइए नहीं और नहीं ठीक है वापस जाए हाँ. So the idea is that there is a ground floor and a first floor. The first floor is only to be used when the floods arrive, but the ground floor is really where the people spend their time. And the other thing that is used a lot in Sindh, especially, not so much in the Sindh, They like to store their materials, their goods, mostly for the weddings that they make, these releases, etc., in a safe place. And one of the first things that they do is to save that, because it takes, they spend a lot of months building these things, making these things. So they'll be storing that on the. That's what we did when we built them in Jawal. We had platforms, and the platform was meant for sleeping. They put their trunks there on the top.
And this bamboo, is it treated?
Yes.
It looks dark.
Bamboo has to be treated. If it's not treated, it won't last long. Bamboo is attacked by insects, by termites inside. And it's a capillary material. So what we do is we soak the bamboo in a drum, and we use a mixture called boric acid, which is organic. And it takes about 8 days for the liquid to rise up to a height of this ceiling.
Mixed with water.
Mixed with water, of course. And the capillary action takes it up. So it's all inside, it's protected inside. And once you do that, it'll last. Well, according to us, we built 10 years, 2010, 12 saal to ho gaye. There's been no attack of termites on all the buildings that we've done so far.
That's good.
So it actually works. Sometimes you do these things and you're not quite sure.
यहाँ तो इतने expensive भी जो termite proofing होती है वो 4 साल 5 साल में खत्म हो जाती है.
अच्छा, वो chemical treatment.
हाँ. ये तो organic ही तो रहेगा. खत्म तो हो ही नहीं सकता.
नहीं, वो तो दूसरी बात है, मगर yeah, that's interesting.
तो केरोसिन का क्या, रमेश कुछ कह रहे थे, केरोसिन का इस्तेमाल?
Kerosene for lighting.
Oh,
lanterns.
I thought that you were sort of applying.
इनको शायद कोट कर रहे हैं.
नहीं.
For lighting.
नहीं. वो that's for lanterns was kerosene.
ठीक. तो ये बोरेक्स से होता है.
Borax.
ठीक.
There are other organic materials, but in Pakistan it's available. Borax is available. Elsewhere there's other materials.
It's like a powder.
It comes in a powder form, but you mix it in water to a certain percentage. I forget now what the percentage is, to give it the correct protection.
आंधी वगैरह आए तो इसको ज़्यादा नुकसान तो नहीं?
जी?
आंधी वगैरह अगर तेज है?
Sorry, आपके
आंधी अगर आए तो नुकसान तो नहीं होता?
आंधी? अभी देखिए cyclone तो there's no protection against cyclone. There's no protection against the floods that came into Sindh were, in some areas they were, believe it or not, 18 feet high. You can't, there's nothing you can do about that.
Okay, आपने coastal area fisherman community के लिए भी बनाया ना ये? वहाँ तो हवा तेज ही होती है.
तेज होती है, मगर
resist कर लेते हैं.
हाँ, to a certain extent, to a reasonable extent. Mगर, if there's a cyclone or a typhoon, obviously, and cyclones have come to this part of the world, and the floods, when they came, the water intensity. आप लोग ने floods देखा कहीं कहाँ आपके यहाँ पर करीब में आप गए हैं?
जी, हमारे
हैं? अच्छा. आपने देखा था जैसे आ रहा था?
हाँ जी, इतना स्पीडली पानी नहीं आता.
स्पीड से नहीं आता.
स्लो आ रहा.
अगर माउंटेन्स में तो बहुत तेज था.
हाँ.
ऊंची नीची जगह होती हैं तो रुकावट आ जाती है.
आप तो मुल्तान साइड की बात कर रहे हैं, तो फ्लैट
में आया था.
हाँ जी.
तो यहाँ पर तो in Sindh the water came very slowly because it's flat. But Sindh was badly affected because all the water collected there.
बिल्कुल.
And there is this this discussion taking place that actually and interestingly enough the farmers want the floods to come. They bring the silt and they improve the soil. They कहते हैं कि ये आप लोग इतना शोर क्यों मचा रहे हैं, हमारे लिए तो फायदेमंद है. And then we try and explain to them that obviously people have died, and the reason for that they say is that we weren't warned enough. We weren't given the right information at the right time. I don't know, there's a lot of arguments about whether you build dams or you don't build dams, you allow the water to go through its own natural course. And I think the latter is the one that is now being preferred, is the natural course of water, let it flow. Because these floods didn't come from the rivers. This was barish, this was rainwater flood.
That's different.
There's a difference of floods coming from river and from, this came from the rain.
So, I want to ask you a question, because each area has its own indigenous methods of earth building. We're all familiar with Punjab. Okay, what's the method normally in Sindh for earth, your indigenous building?
There are two main, one is called 𝐒𝐽 construction, which is just using the mitti and you place it along a line and then you shave it to give it the
It's similar in Punjab as the Dhamme.
Acha, wo, dusri lafz.
It is similar to this.
And the other is adobe blocks, sun-dried blocks. Both. But again, as I say, that if you use the right proportions of sand, silt and clay, your block will last a long time.
That's amazing.
And they did. I mean, I've seen buildings in Sindh which have to be at least 100 years old, made out of earth.
Wow, that's
amazing. And I explain when I give lectures to students, I say, earth construction has taken place all over the world. It's not just here, everywhere. In Europe, in Britain, there were buildings of earth long time ago. France, Germany, then America. America, especially in the drier areas, Arizona, New Mexico. And then this argument, ye to gharib ke liye hai. And then I show them slides where the millionaires are living, made out of earth. And they say, wow, ye kahan, ye kaise ho raha hai? America mein bhi aise log rehte hain. Of course, kyun nahi? In the buildings that we made, we've recorded temperatures from outside and inside, about 15 degrees.
Unbelievable.
So if it's 45 outside, it's 30 inside. And I need to do a proper scientific, but we have a little thermometer that we...
Okay, should we open the floor for questions? या
Please.
और कहना चाहते हैं?
नहीं, सवाल सबसे पहले बेहतर होता है. The master plan that we've done in Sibi is done with the help of Arif Hassan, and we did if you like, a moon-shaped band that surrounds the village. On either side of that, at the edges of that moon shape, is two rivers, small rivers. So that moon shape, when the floods come, and they will come again, that band will protect the village and take the water away into... And the band is in section is about the size of this room. It's big, and about the same depth. So when the flood waters come, that is one of the things that we've done. आप जब पूछ रहे हैं कि after the floods go, what happens?
कि स्टोर किया जाए पानी.
स्टोर किया जाए.
जैसे चोलिस्तान
वगैरह. मतलब बजाय इसके कि आप एक डैम बनाएं, हर कोई अपनी उस जगह पे लोकलाइज तरीके में सस्ता सा सस्ता तरीका.
Yes, absolutely. They are doing this in certain areas where they're digging wells about the size of this floor, and the depth of it is about 8 feet. The bottom is got pebbles and stone, and then you build it up with certain amounts of earth and leave it at the top so that the water percolates through back into the soil. So it reinforces the aquifer. Yeah, that technique is being done at the moment.
थोड़ा सा ये भी बता सकते हैं कि बलूचिस्तान में तो खैर काफ़ी अलग-अलग तरीके हैं. आपको जो मिले अर्थ कंस्ट्रक्शन के, तो पत्थर भी साथ कई दफ़ा इस्तेमाल. Depends on the place, I guess.
Yes, it does. It depends on the place where you can get stone. आमतौर में they use batta bricks.
अच्छा.
वो बहुत ज़्यादा इस्तेमाल.
मगर sun dried या proper brick?
Sun dried मगर burnt in the batta.
अच्छा.
To get it to become a pakka brick.
Pakka.
But we don't use that because we don't encourage that, because the batta itself is burning tires and burning all sorts of things which are polluting the atmosphere.
صحیح.
جی
اچھا میں سول انجینئر ہوں تو میں پچھلے 3 سال سے نا یہ اپنے طور پہ یہ سارے ایکسپیریمنٹ کیے ہیں کوپ کے بھی ایڈوب کے بھی ایون ارتھ بیگ بھی اسٹرابیج بھی. تو یہ جو فلڈ میں ہے میں لوگوں کو یہ کہتا ہوں کہ کیونکہ جس طرح یہ کوپ وغیرہ ہے اس کا تو وہ اتنا ہیوی میس ہے آپ کو ونڈ وغیرہ کی ٹینشن نہیں ہے. اس میں میرا صرف یہ ہے کہ ہم ریز کیوں نہیں کر رہے تھے جگہ کو جو آپ کا نیچرل فلڈ لیول ہے اس کے اوپر ریز, کیونکہ جو فلڈ میں اگر جو ہم نے دیکھا تھا خبروں وغیرہ میں کہ لوگ سارے نا سڑکوں پہ آئے ہوئے تھے کیونکہ سڑک امبینکمنٹ ہوتی ہے آپ کو پتہ ہے, تو اس لیے تو سڑک پروٹیکٹڈ ہوتی ہے ورنہ تو اس کو نہیں آپ پروٹیکٹ کر سکتے. تو اس میں صرف یہ ہے کیونکہ لوگ آئسولیٹڈ گھر بناتے ہیں, تو اگر تھوڑا کو ہاؤسنگ کا ایک آرکیٹیکچر ہو نا جس میں آپ اسٹرپ بنا دیں اور وہ اسٹرپ بھی آپ ساؤتھ فیسنگ کر لیں تاکہ وہ ایسٹ ٹو ویسٹ, تو اس میں اگر سب کے اور سب کے آگے کورٹ یارڈ ہو تو اس میں کیونکہ اگر آپ روف سے تھوڑا سا آپ کینٹیلیور باہر نکال دیں تو آپ کو بارش سے کوئی خطرہ نہیں ہے, اور اگر آپ ریز کر دیں تو یہی دو ہے نا پانی. تو مجھے نہیں سمجھ آتا کہ لوگ ریز کیوں نہیں کرتے, اور وہ آپ کو اوپن لینڈ ہے, آپ نے ایک یہ ٹریکٹر سے بلیڈ سے اس کو اکٹھا کر دینا ہے, تو وہ اتنی لمبی موٹر وے بنی ہے اس کو اگر ریز کر سکتے ہیں. تو
آپ کی بات بہت ضرورت ہے, یہ ابھی ہو رہا ہے. ہم لوگ جو کر رہے ہیں جو بلوچستان میں کام کر رہے ہیں, ہر گھر کا ہم نے فلور لیول سے جو ایگزسٹنگ گراؤنڈ لیول 3 فٹ اونچا کرا ہے مٹی سے, اور پھر اس کے اوپر ہم نے 3 فٹ اور لگائے آپ کی اسٹون فاؤنڈیشن. سو فرام دا گراؤنڈ لیول جہاں پر پانی ہے اور آپ کے پلنتھ اوپر دیوار تک 6 فٹ کا فاصلہ ہے. ایک تو یہ ہے. دوسرا جو آپ کہہ رہے ہیں اوور ہینگ کی, اوور ہینگ کے آپ شاید ہمارے ماڈل میں دیکھیں اوور ہینگ تو لازمی ہے. ہاں, اور آپ کہہ رہے ہیں کیوں نہیں کرتے ہیں. مجھے یہ سوال اس کا جواب مجھے نہیں پتا ہمارے ملک میں کرتے کیوں نہیں.
اس کا ایک ریزن یہ ہے کہ تھوڑا سا کلچر ایشو ہے کہ لوگ نا گھر دور دور بناتے ہیں آئسولیٹڈ.
جی جی,
اس میں نا ایک گھر کے لیے نا جگہ ریز کرنا مشکل ہو جاتا ہے. لیکن اگر تھوڑا سا اس کو اسٹرپ میں کریں نا تو وہ بیسیکلی آرکیٹیکچر جو ہے نا کمیونٹی کا تھوڑا سا بنانا.
دیکھیں آپ کو ایک چیز یاد رکھنا ہے کہ یہ پہلی بھی لوگ نے بنائے ہیں جو اس کو لفظ جو کہتے ہیں ماڈل ولیج, اور وہ اسٹرپس میں بنائے ہیں اور اس میں کوئی نہیں رہ رہا. اس کی وجہ ہے کہ اس کا کلچر نہیں ہے. کلچر ہے لیونگ ان کلسٹرز. اسٹرپ میں بنانے کی جیسے بیرکس اس میں کوئی نہیں رہ رہا. میں آپ کو 2-3 ایگزامپلس بھی دکھا سکتا ہوں. سندھ میں آئے, سندھ میں, بلوچستان میں نہیں دیکھا, مگر سندھ میں وہ گھر خالی پڑے ہیں. These were built in the 2010 floods. یہ اسٹرپ کی جو بات کریں, ایک کی جو آپ کہہ رہے ہیں کہ اس کی آسانی ہے اسٹرپ میں بنانے کے لیے, مگر جب آپ تک اس کے کلچر نہیں دیکھیں گے تو انسان جو رہے گا نہیں اس میں کیا فائدہ. دوسری چیز ہے آپ کے باہر سے بہت سے پروپوزل آ رہے ہیں گھر کے, اور باتھ روم گھر کے اندر ہے. باتھ روم گھر کے اندر ہے, کوئی نہیں رہے گا اس میں, اور ہم سمجھا کے تھک جاتے ہیں. ان کو کہتے ہیں آپ کیوں یہ چیز لگا رہے ہیں. باتھ روم آپ کے ملک میں ہے, ہمارے ملک میں نہیں ہے. ہمارے ملک میں باہر ہوتا ہے باتھ روم, رورل ایریز.
100 سال پہلے ان کے ملک میں بھی نہیں ہوتا, وہ بھی باہر آتے تھے.
مگر یہ اور ان کو سمجھ میں نہیں آتا. ابھی تک ہم آپ کو دکھا دیں گے. کل پرسوں ہمارے پاس پروپوزل آئی تھی پلاننگ کے گھر کے باتھ روم اندر, and these are coming from well-known international organizations. This is not coming from which I don't understand. Don't they come over here? یہاں پر آتے نہیں دیکھنے کے لیے ہمارا کلچر کیا ہے. جو آپ کہہ رہے ہیں اسٹرپ میں کوئی نہیں رہے گا.
فیضی صاحب, آپ کو ذہن میں کوئی نہ کوئی سوال تو نظر آ رہا ہے.
بہت لکھ رہے ہیں.
I have 3 questions. The first one is that you suggested that the variable age of mud construction is anywhere from 20 years to about 100 years as well. Is that a consequence only of the environment in which that architecture has been developed, or is it a consequence of the addition of materials? The second question is that in your experience, since mud, as you yourself put it, is an organic material, there must be a variable range within which mud changes its properties or qualities. The analogy that I like to use is that if you give a recipe for cooking to someone, it's always going to taste different, even if they have the same recipe. So in your experience, what kind of variable ranges of the properties of mud did you see? And whether there were any challenges in it? And the last question is that you yourself believe that there is a relationship between culture and material used at a particular place? And considering on some level the obvious benefits of constructing in mud and how it has not been co-opted by the city yet as a construction material regardless of the benefits that it has, would you say that that is more a consequence of the kind of culture that the city creates vis-a-vis material, or would there be any other, or is there any other reason?
I think I'll answer your last question first. Living in a city, to get the earth that you require to build, you have to get it from outside. And you have to transport it. And that defeats the purpose. By the time you've transported that material to your site, the cost is the same as the material that you use in an urban area. Yes, the advantages are that you get better insulation, but the economics or the credibility of using a material is somewhat dissipated by the transportation costs. And if you look in the main thought process of using earth as a material is the carbon sequestration. Now, as you all know, that cement and steel create a huge amount of carbon in our atmosphere. So trying to reduce that. But interestingly enough, I was reading a report the other day that transportation gives more carbon into the atmosphere than any of the other processes. So you have to reduce your transportation costs. And now with the cost of petrol going up, etc. Okay, your second question was about location and environment.
Yeah, variable range and
Yes. Of course, you're absolutely right. The material depends on where it is. There are some areas where the silt is not available, so you have to bring it in. There are some areas where clay is not available, and you have to bring that in. But most areas do have that mixture of soil that is needed. You need a mixture of sand, silt, and clay. Clay must not be more than 20%. A lot of people think ज़्यादा clay लगाएंगे तो मजबूत हो जाएगी. Clay is used for making pottery. You have to fire it, and if you don't fire it, and if you leave it open, it'll crack because it shrinks. There's a lot of moisture in it. So if you have the right proportions, and this is all available on the internet. There's nothing. You get the right proportions. Your adobe block will last a long time.
Sure.
And the third question you asked is to do with maintenance. Why would it last 50 years? Why would it last 100 years? जो पुराने घर हैं वहाँ पर हर साल या हर 2 साल उसको लिपाई करते हैं मिट्टी से. And just that process maintains the building. It maintains it for 50 years, 60 years. And again, the lipai is the same. मिट्टी है. उसमें you don't have to go to a factory to get whatever it is. वही इस्तेमाल करें.
Come on.
Has Indus architecture developed a manual over the course of these years as to the use of these materials?
No, I'm sad to say that we haven't a manual, but and actually you're right. I think what we should do is to build a manual, make a manual. नहीं हमने अभी तक नहीं करा मगर we should do that. The variability is great in areas, both in Sindh and Balochistan. The variability of the material, the access to that material, the masons that have been who know how to use this material varies a lot. So people keep asking how much does it cost? Well, you know how much it costs by these factors. If the material is easily available, if the masons are easily available. But I think I sort of explained before that we train people how to make these things. So, for example, in this room, there are how many? 20 people here? takriban 20-25 people here. If we were to train all of you how to make a house, and you built your own house through that training, you would employ 2 or 3 younger people to help you build those houses. وہ بھی ٹرین ہو جائیں گے. اور ایسے you know we have about 30 masons that we've trained in the use of this material, compressed earth block material. Okay, but the adobe is an old tradition. They know how to do it. What I've been telling them is that your mixture is not right. Your composition, your specification of the material that you're using. یہ نہیں کہ جب آپ کہیں پہ جا کے کھڈا کھود کے مٹی میں گھر بنا دیں. Now, for argument's sake, the garden outside here, I don't know whether you could just dig a hole and take out the earth and build a house. You know, I'd have to look at the material. If there's enough of everything that we're talking about, that'll be fine. But in some areas it isn't. And so you have to bring that material in to make it. But I have no doubt about the use of this material, none whatsoever. It should be used extensively. And if we are to solve our housing problem in this country, yes, every politician comes and says, I will solve the problem. There is no quick fix. There is no one solution. There is no one government that will do it. There is no one institution that will do it. The people themselves will do it. They apna ghar khud banayenge. And they are building them at the moment, but unfortunately they're going back to the old system again. I mean, one can't be everywhere. But wherever it is possible, we've been showing them how to do the thing in the correct manner, if that's the word to use. And I again emphasize, the correct manner is not something that we've come up with. It's their grandfathers knew it. Of course.
سکھیرا صاحب آپ کا تو فرسٹ ہینڈ ہے اپنے علاقے میں, وہاں کیا صورتحال ہے؟ ہم لوگ
یہی بات ہے کہ گھر بھی خود بنانے, بزرگوں کے نال مل کے انہوں نے پرانے طرز تھی اسی طرح ہی مٹی دے نال. اور پھر سر یہ کنسیپٹ بھی سی کہ جنی دیر تسی کوئی ایڈی لمبی چوڑی پلاننگ نہ کرو, جنی دیر رہنا ہے انہاں کی گھر بناؤ. صحیح بات ہے, بڑا مزیدار سی. سر میں فارم دے بھی انجی کیتا ہے بھی انہوں ڈھال لگ گیا بھی بتانا پریشانی نہ ہو, انہوں دوبارہ بھی پڑھا دو. ٹھیک ہے بالکل سر.
جی سر.
ان مائی ہاؤس اینڈ ولیج سے ابھی تک ہم نے وہ اوپر نا وہ ٹیار ڈالے ہوئے, ٹائلس لگائی ہیں تاکہ جب کبھی بھی اونچا کرنا ہوگا وہ آرام سے چھت اوپر.
تو ڈرائی ہے سارا بالکل.
وہ میرے یعنی کہ 30 ایئرس اگو ہم نے وہ یعنی کہ پکا گھر بنایا تھا, لیکن پھر بھی اوپر وہ رکھا تھا کہ جب کبھی بھی کریں گے اونچا کریں ایزیلی ہو جائے گا.
بالکل. اور جناب کسی کا کوئی ایکسپیرینس؟ ہاں جی.
السلام علیکم سر. آج آپ کے کراچی میں کچھ میری ٹیم کے لوگ گئے ہوئے ہیں, انہوں نے وزٹ کیا, قاسم نے آپ کو بتایا ہوگا.
اچھا آپ اسامہ ہیں؟
جی میں اسامہ. تو میں نے پچھلے سال 2 سال پہلے انفیکٹ 2021 میں کمپریسڈ ارتھ برک میکنگ مشین اسلام آباد سے لی تھی. ابھی میں نے ریسنٹلی اپنا MA کیا NCA سے کمپلیٹ, تو وہ لاہور میں ایگزیبٹ بھی میں نے کیا تھا جو کمپریسڈ ارتھ برکس میں نے بنائی ہیں. تو اس میں نے ڈفرینٹ کمپوزیشنس ٹرائی کیے, لائم کے ساتھ بھی, وداؤٹ لائم بھی, سیمنٹ لائم بھی, جسٹ مڈ اینڈ سینڈ اینڈ سلٹ بھی. اور جو میں نے ایگزیبٹ کیا تھا وہ میں نے NCA میں 6 مہینے چھوڑ دی تھی برکس نا, تو انہوں نے بارشوں میں اور سب میں جو ہو سکتا تھا ویدر کیا انہوں نے. تو بڑا مطلب فار می اٹ واز مزے کا تھا کہ وہ برکس بڑی اچھی فارمر شیپ میں ہیں ورسز ایون جو گاؤں کے لوگ کہتے ہیں تھوڑا سا ان کو لپائی ہر سال کرنی پڑتی ہے. تو یہ کمپریشن کے بعد اور ہینڈ کمپریسڈ ہیں, these are not machine compressed, مطلب بالکل ہینڈ آپریٹڈ مشین. بڑی خوبصورت ان کی شیپ ہے. اور
جی جی بالکل بالکل.
تو
I'm glad to hear this.
مل گئی مشین. ہم یہاں پہ
یہ مشین اسلام آباد جا رہی ہے, سمجھ جسٹ سیٹ کہ وہ اپنا گھر اس سے بنا رہے ہیں.
ان کے بعد تو مل سکتی,
ان کے بعد یہ واپس آ جائے گی. اور دوسرا I got some books from Laurie Baker in India. انہوں نے اس پہ بہت کام کیا ہوا ہے. So I have all the books available.